and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about Elisabeth Fritzl. I actually watched the movie on Lifetime. Of course, I noticed that they left a lot of details out and they didn't really tell the story totally accurate. So today I am going to talk about this case and everything that actually happened. I will tell you guys it's incredibly disturbing, so I'm just giving you guys a heads up. But if you guys like these type of videos, don't forget to subscribe, like, and let's get to it. Josef Fritzl was born April 9th, 1935 in Austria. He grew up as an only child and he lived with his mom, who was a working mother. His father went and completely deserted the family when he was only 4, so he never had a father figure growing up. In 1956, when he was 21 years old, he married Rosemary when she was only 17, which is pretty common back then. They went on to have 3 sons and 4 daughters. He completed his education at HTL Technical College with a qualification in technical engineering. And then from 1969 till 1971, he worked in a construction material firm. Then he became a technical equipment salesman, which made him travel throughout Austria. And when he turned 60 in 1995, he retired, but he would still work here and there. He had an apartment building in Amsterdam, and he also rented out several other properties. Then in 1972, he bought this lake house. It was like a guest house. And then he ran that with his wife until 1996. Now, he's already got a pretty deep history. 1967, he broke into the Lynn's home, and the husband was away working, and 24-year-old woman who was a nurse was home by herself. And when he broke in, he held a to her throat and her and said that if she screamed, he would kill her. And then that same year, he was also named the suspect in the case of a 21-year-old girl that he attempted to. And he was also known for indecent exposure. Because of that, he served 12 months of an 18-month sentence. And then with Austria law, after 15 years, it was expunged off his record. And as a result, 25 years later, when he offered to adopt Elisabeth's kids, which I'm going to get to in a little bit, which is his daughter, he was actually allowed to. The authorities didn't see his history because it got expunged. So here's where it begins to get a little bit dark. In 1977, he starts to his 11-year-old daughter. And in 1980, his mom passes away. And then from 1981 to 1982, he secretly starts to turn his basement into a cell, a hidden secretive cell. Installed a toilet, a wash basin area, a little refrigerator, a bed, and a little area where you could cook like hot things. The cellar had a 16-foot hallway area, like a corridor, a storage area, and then 3 open cells that were all connected by really tiny passageways. It covered an area of about 590 square feet. Now, this hidden cell was located behind a bookcase in his basement workshop, protected by an electronic code that was entered by using a remote control unit. In order to reach this door, 5 locking basement rooms had to be crossed. So to get where Elisabeth and her children were located, you had to go through 5 doors, which 2 of the other doors were additionally secured by more electronic locking devices. Being down there, it was impossible to get out. And then on August 28th, 1984, which is the day before my birthday, he lures his daughter Elisabeth down there. The way he does this is he asks Elisabeth to come help him install a door down there, and she happily agrees. And then moments later, 18-year-old Elisabeth was tied up and chained to a bed by her father, who would keep her down there for 24 years, and he over 3,000 times. Now remember, this cell had so much security and it was soundproof, so nobody had any idea she was down there. He chained her arms behind her back so she couldn't move at all, really. And he convinced his wife, Rosemary, that she had ran away when sadly she was just right below her. That next day is the first time that he while she was held down there. After her being chained up for 6 whole months, he finally removed the chains because it was getting in the way, he said, of his pleasure with her, if you know what I mean. Throughout the time he kept her down there, he kicked her, force her into doing really disgusting acts. He would make her recreate really terrible scenes from, and he several times a day. Now this living space became wet and damp and moldy, and it was infested with rats. She had to get these rats and with her bare hands. Sadly, she becomes pregnant. She had no medical care, anything, just a pair of dirty scissors and some disinfectant he gave her. She ended up giving birth to 7 babies over the course of this time, all by herself. They lived underground and never saw sunlight, and they had to witness what he would do to their mom. Somehow Elisabeth was able to convince him to take 3 of the kids to live upstairs, and what he did was he made it seem as though Elisabeth dropped them off at the doorstep and made her write a note saying that she didn't have the time or money or capable means to be able to take care of them. So she left them with her mom, and that's how he made it look. And sadly, when she had given birth to twins, the one twin had passed away just 66 hours after he was born while Elisabeth was holding him. This led to Josef fritzl deciding to burn the baby in an incinerator. To prevent her from escaping, he said that if she tried to do anything like mess with the security padding, that a poison would be released into the air and they would all die instantly. And if he got mad at her, he would shut the electric off down there, and her kids would be left in complete darkness for days on end. So her oldest daughter, Kirsten, ended up getting really sick and deathly pale, so she pleaded with him, and somehow she convinced him to take her to the hospital. While she was in the hospital, she luckily had a TV in her cell and saw the authorities looking for the mother to Kirsten, and she somehow pleaded and bargained with him to take her to the hospital to see her daughter. And when she got there and was finally alone with the authorities, she let them know everything that had happened to her. The authorities said that the first thing she said is, "No one's going to believe me." So when this whole thing finally came to an end, she had all these children from 6 to 19. They were given intense family therapy and therapy for each child. Now they're all living under secret names. Stefan or Steven, I'm not sure, but he actually, when they found him, wasn't even able to walk upright from being stooped over and hunched over from the low ceilings. And Kirsten was so traumatized, she began to pull her hair out in clumps, and she would get like frustrated and upset, and she would cut up all her clothes and just really release a lot of anger that was built up. And then they all had a lot of medical problems, especially because they hadn't seen sunlight. And it was really hard also for the 3 kids that lived upstairs because they had no idea. So there was this really big problem between the cellar children and the upstairs children. They were just all so traumatized. Then for a little bit, Elisabeth and her mother didn't speak because Elisabeth felt that, you know, Rosemarie could have stood up to her father and things could have went a completely different route. But luckily, they ended up reconciling and they started to spend a lot more time together. And then at the age of 52, Elisabeth finally found love with her bodyguard in 2019, and her psychiatrist said that she's been getting on with her life, helping kids with their homework. She's learned to drive, and she's even made friends with the locals that she lives around. So I'm really happy that this story almost kind of has a happy ending, but it's still so traumatic, and her life obviously was completely ruined, and so much was taken from her and her kids, and it's just so sad. He ended up getting light, of course. He's just a horrible person, completely evil. I will never understand how somebody could do this, but this is the story of a girl in the basement. So I hope you guys like this video, and I will see you soon.